Welcome to another episode for the NBL Supercoach Hub. I am Barnesy, your host. We're here for round 7 of the NBL Supercoach season. For the Hub, we do have the pleb over in Europe travelling and everything. So we do have a special guest this week, which is Ricky, which you'd all probably, some of you anyway that are on our Discord would know from the Discord server. So welcome aboard, Ricky. It's great to have you this week.
Good to be on. It's always good to chat anything to do with NBL and sport in general. So happy to be here.
Awesome, mate. Awesome. Well, let's talk about the round first of all. I mean, how did you end up going in round 6? It was a bit of a up and down round for a lot of teams. There was a fair few injuries, and especially last night, like we had the game on the Monday this week for the NBL, and we had Travers last less than a minute and then get concussion. Huck Porty ended up injured as well. It was a bit of an up and down round for a lot of teams. How did yours fare?
Yeah, probably more. Luckily, I didn't have too much damage. I did have Travers, and obviously I was hoping he'd probably get me a bit closer to the 400 mark in the end, but it didn't happen. But ended up with 354, and that put me down 43 spots to 961st. So not too bad in the end, not too much damage. But again, as I said, ideally, if Travers had played a bit more, probably could have been potentially a slight green arrow, but these things happen.
Yeah, you can't plan for the injuries. And I mean, it was one of those rounds too where at the very start of the round, we were all waiting for Patrick Miller, and it looked like Miller was going to be fine coming into the round. And then all of a sudden he wasn't. So I actually made the call literally 20 minutes before tip-off of the round to get rid of Miller because I wanted to make sure I kept chasing hard to get up the ranks and stuff. And I brought in Brown, which I was never considering. So I was pretty happy with that. Obviously, Brown top scored for the round. 433 for me, so it was a good round. That was 76 overall, moves me up to 275, I think it is. So it was a really good round. I did burn a boost though. So I mean, that's the other thing at the moment. I'm down to a couple of boosts left, so maybe that'll hurt me in the back end, but it was a good round. It certainly seemed like I actually didn't know. I don't know how you felt about it. I didn't know how to feel about the round. I was like, 433 is a big score, but I also knew that I had Olbrich with his 1, Travers with a -2, Henschel with a 0, even though he had the double game week, he still got a 0. And I was like, well, it's a big score, but surely there's other teams with real big scores. So it was a real hard one for me to gauge.
It was. I think it was even some of the pundits, like I saw Olga Lulik as well, saying it was one of those rounds. I think it was in one of the games there was 61 fouls and 79 points from free throws. I mean, that's ridiculous,
That was the Phoenix game, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, you don't expect to see that many fouls in the game and whatnot. And they were saying that it was one of the worst officiated rounds that they've probably seen in a long time. So it probably tells you how, just in general, how either poorly or well someone had done in Supercoach, and certainly reflected upon the scores in the end.
Yeah, I mean, it was funny because that game, it ended up with a lot of good scorers, or decent scorers. Like you had Creek and Williams in the 30s. Brown obviously got 45, I think, so he had a big one. But it was, Alan Williams ended up getting fouled out, and he was one of the most popular trade-ins for the week as well. Managed to still put up a big score because he was a beast, but he was affected by it. So it's hard because coming into, I'm not sure how many people that are playing NBL Supercoach are also paying huge attention to the NBL as far as fanatical attention. But at the moment, we are looking at an NBL season that has the most fouls called ever. That's the pace that it is. So whether that changes, whether that affects Supercoach or not, I'm not sure. But let's talk about the trades for this round. Probably before we do, we need to just mention the schedule. So double game weeks are obviously gold. This week, nobody's on a double game week. So, Ricky, it's probably one of those things where it gives a bit of relief to teams. And I think the teams last week probably should have been looking ahead to it, going, look, I can afford to get guys that are just going to go into single games after last round because everybody's on a single game this round. So you're not really going to lose out too much. And it also means you can hold guys a bit longer, I think, right? Because you can go into this round and just play guys for the one game, knowing that there's no other guys that have got the double game week. So you can fix those type of problems or trade outs the following round in round 9. So it might be a bit of a handy week this week for super coaches in that regard, not needing to chase the doubles, maybe even save some trades.
No, that's it. I mean, I think I guess the best plan of attack is just to try and have, I guess, those guys that are reliable, scoring points freely. Obviously, if you can have someone like Pinder or Williams playing at centre, and then Bryce Cotton and Jackson Cartwright, just guys that can easily churn out 35, 40 points if need be, and then fingers crossed your bench does well, because obviously, as you said, guys like Ulbrich and Henschel that were firing in rounds 2 and 3 and now scoring 1 or 0. So it's just literally, if you can, I guess, just find that balance, and as I said, maybe keep a spare trade or two up your sleeve. It probably helps you in the long run.
Yeah, for sure. And look, it's like I said, it should be something that you're eyeing off. You need to be looking ahead a few weeks. And for me, last week, I knew that I had 3 Phoenix starters in my starting lineup, and I knew that their double game week was last week, and then they've got a bit of a drought before they've got any more. So, but I thought that I could afford to do that because I've got ample opportunity to get rid of a Brown or a Creek or even a Williams, and I'm sort of eyeing off the next fortnight being able to play them this week, and then next week being able to maybe trade 1 or 2 of them out. So I think that we've got that. That's a positive out of this round. The negative is obviously we've only got 5 games, so it's going to be hugely lowly scored because it's the first time we've only had 5 games in a round, I believe, for this year, and it's the first time definitely that there's no double game week for any club. So it's going to be interesting because we haven't seen it before this year. We haven't actually seen it happen in Supercoach yet, being the first year of NBL Supercoach. For me, I think that it's going to make it really, really important to look at the matchups, Ricky, and to make sure that you've got the matchups covered if you're going to chase points, and also that you've got the quality in the lineup, because you can't just do what you do other weeks and maybe have someone that's a little bit mediocre, but because they got 2 games, they're going to bulk up their scoring. It's really going to come down to the stars, I reckon.
Oh, look, absolutely, and I guess, as I said, sort of, we know the guys that are going to impress. We know the guys that sort of, the ones that very rarely have a bad game. I mean, even for some players, a bad game is still scoring, 27, 28 points. So sort of that difference between their best and their worst is not very hard, not very different. So if you can have guys like that again, still going to get you anywhere from the high 20s to the mid 40s, then sort of you're going to put yourself in a good position to at least score well in this shortened round.
Yeah, for sure. Let's go along to the trade market and have a look at what's happening at the moment. Interesting, because there's a lot of big decisions to make. I think Travers is the first guy that's been traded out the most, and that makes total sense. He's lost, 25,000. He's in close to 50% of teams already. Absolutely. 25% of trades at the moment are Travers out. He got a concussion, only played for, a minute, and there's a couple of different reasons why you need to trade him out. One, he doesn't have any double game weeks coming up for a while. So even though it's a single game week, you've got no hope on the horizon after that of him coming good again. Other thing too is that he's break even because of his -2 score on the weekend. It's very high. So he's going to lose cash this week if he does play. 43 break even, although it's not a huge break even. The other thing too that I'd be worried about is concussion. So obviously we saw with Dellavedova, he missed some games with his concussion as well. I haven't seen an official timeline on Travers yet, but if he misses this week as well, he's basically a must trade out, I think, because he's already just dropped 25k, but he still has 266,000 in value. So that looks like the market's probably got it right that he's a good trade out for this week.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's, as you said, I mean, we've seen before in other sports as well, concussion is one of those things that the protocols now are so strict and they're so, so set in place that if you happen in the past that you're probably really lucky, and as other guys end up missing weeks, even months as a result of those those lingering systems. So lingering symptoms. So, and as you said with Dellavedova as well, he missed 3 weeks, I think it was, give or take. So it's certainly something that teams are, I guess, playing cautious with, and so they should. And yeah, Travers is a must sell this week.
Huck Porty's pretty much in the same boat. I chose to sell. I thought that he was a big sell last week.
Exactly.
Yeah, if you held on to him, it's a real tough pill to swallow now because he's gone down to 215,000, and that's not much value. You've lost a bit on the value of having him was to make money, and you've lost a lot of that last fortnight now. Lockie Ulbrich, though, he's a tick over 100k. He only got the 1 on the weekend. I thought that he's been looking a bit better. I understand why people are getting rid of him because one is exceptionally disappointing. But one thing that I will say, he doesn't have the double game weeks coming up, but he does only have a break even of 6. So when you've got those single figure break evens, even if it's a bench guy not going that well, I'm not going to talk anyone out of it. If they don't have any better players to trade out, Ricky, then certainly, Albridge you can get rid of. But I'm not rushing to trade him out myself. I think you can easily just hold him.
No, I think you can. I think it's a bit. I mean, not that I'm a Hawks fan, but I think his usage has been a bit disappointing. So we saw in the Blitz in the preseason what he could do, and he had at least 2 games there. He was, I guess for a young guy looking good, playing well, and I guess round 1 we sort of saw, oh, maybe he can do more. We sort of it's like he either plays for 2 minutes or plays for 10 minutes and sort of the place. So I think the potential's there, and as you said, certainly he's still making money. So it's not an immediate sell, but it'd be good to see what he could do if he played more minutes.
Yeah, it would. And, I'm not really sure having a look at it. It's just very hard to tell. Having a look at the rest of the guys, Henschel has been disappointing. He's just stuck around in my team. I'm probably going to stick around with him again. I'd love to go to Atara and Armstrong and just go sideways with that trade, but I probably won't be able to because of other pressing issues. Sobey, I think that's an easy trade out, as is Flowers, McDaniel. A lot of these guys are pretty easy. Cummings was disappointing on the weekend and now he's injured. Wardenberg's an interesting one. So he's on a break even at 36. He's gone up to 273,000. 44,000 he's made on his starting money. He looks like he's done his job and he's a trade out, right? And last round, he scored 34, which, it was okay, but in a big scoring round, I think some teams probably wanted a bit more from him. I thought he's looked pretty good. Now, obviously, Jai, the Supercoach pleb that's been on the last couple of podcasts, he's a big Wardenberg fan. One of the things with the no double game week this week is that you need to look at who's got them the following weeks. And the following week, Cairns and New Zealand both have double game weeks, as does Perth and Tassie. And then the week after that, Cairns and New Zealand also have them. So you've got a couple of weeks in a row where Cairns, is going to have the double game week, and Wardenberg is obviously Cairns Taipan. The downside is that Cairns are going to have their full team back now. So what that does to his minutes or his usage, we're not sure yet, because obviously we had Miller out, we had Taj out before. It's one of those ones where you could lose a bit of money on him this week, and I think you probably will, Ricky. But if you look a bit more strategically and longer term, he might be a better hold, because the following week, I actually think that he makes back his money in a double game week. And then you're rolling again, and he's got some double game week consecutive as well. So it seems like that there's probably some higher priority players you could get out of your side other than Wardenberg this week.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, obviously, as I say, he's done well for those that have picked him up. Obviously, any time a bloke can make money, they can sell him at a higher price works. But so yeah, certainly, if the higher profile players start to come back and his minutes decrease, he will. I guess even for those double round games, you have to make some decisions as to, do you keep him and hope he still plays what the minutes he's getting, or I guess run the risk of him playing less minutes and probably scoring less points. So it's very much risk reward, like Supercoach always is realistically. But I think you can maybe get away with holding him, but at the same time, as I said, if all the players for Cairns are back, it is likely his minutes decrease as well. So I'd say it's probably if not a sell now, probably a sell before the double game rounds.
Yeah, it's pretty team specific, I think, as well. Some teams will maybe need the cash he's going to provide. Going through what he's done the last few weeks, I think is important though. Round 2 to 6, and obviously he missed some games in between when he was in the US. He's got 58 points, then a 60-point round, and then a 34-point round, and he's got the double game weeks coming. So I would be tempted to hold him if I had some other issues. Saar is another one that I seem to talk about every week and say, is your team really that good where you need to trade out Saar? It's like, again, he's got a single digit break even at 7. He did some good things on the weekend. He had a 41, which is really quite good. And the other thing too is that single game week this week with the single digit 7 break even, and then he's got the double game week after that. And the double game week after this round is going to be Cairns and Brisbane, with one of those at home for Perth. So it's not the worst matchups for them to have Cairns and Brisbane next round as well. So for me, I am not even thinking about getting rid of Sar. He's just lost $1,200, which is nothing. And he's still got single-digit break-evens. And after this week, he's got a double game week. I've just got more problems to plan ahead for with guys that are going to have single game weeks that week. And I'd probably be steering towards those guys going out of my team this week to try and prepare for that.
Yes, look, obviously with Sarn, I think, much like Wardenberg, certainly, Doolittle's there, Wagstaff is getting more minutes as well now for the Wildcats. So it's sort of like, unlike the beginning of the season where he was the one getting 21 minutes, now there's some games he's only playing 10, 12 minutes. So it's a risk reward. Obviously, if you keep him, he will score some points for you. But I guess the question is he playing enough minutes to justify his spot? And that's always the difficult part in any Supercoach game. And it's like I said before too, obviously, you have to plan for the now, but you also have to plan for the future round. So it's always a balancing act in Supercoach to try and work out the best strategy. And there's no one correct strategy, but certainly there's some big decisions to make now, considering that there's quite a few double game rounds coming up, and there may have to be some players only playing single games that might still be doing well, but you probably have to try and tweak around if you can.
Yeah, I mean, like he got 24 minutes on the weekend, and that was equal to the best minutes for any bench players. So he was being used. I think one of the things was that Pinder fouled out of that game as well, and it was also an OT game. So ordinarily maybe he's a 15-minute player now going forward, possibly. But the fact that he's got the threes and the defensive stats capability that's going to keep his scoring up. So I like holding him, and I'm definitely going to be doing it. But let's talk about the exciting stuff. Who are the top buys for this week? Taran Armstrong, easily number one, and $69,000, very cheap. He's got a -2 break even, and he is about to change cash for the first time and go up. So he's a cow that we spoke about last week, and I was pretty big on waiting and seeing, because I think you get a free look at someone who's a low value player at $69,000. You may as well just have a look and see how they've performed, see that they don't get injured or anything before they actually go up in money and all that sort of stuff. And he came through pretty well in his 2 games on the weekend. He ended up scoring 20 points, or was it? And it was, it could have been better, but I think that he showed some signs. And when you're looking at someone at 69,000 in price, you don't need them to do too much. And if he keeps doing that and a bit more, then he'll be okay. And a -2 break even. He's an easy in, and I can see why people would go Henschel to him. The other thing with Armstrong too is that we spoke about Ken's schedule. They've got a number of 2 game weeks coming up after this round. So it's going to be handy, because even with the point scoring, even if he ends up on the bench and not playing as many minutes, which is going to happen, he's still got those double game weeks to pad that out and to get better scores than some other guys that are, not very good at the end of your bench. So I completely see the value. One thing that I will put to you though, Ricky, is we saw him in a Cairns side that had no Patrick Miller, and we had no McCall there either, and those guys are both back this round. So that's definitely going to hurt him. And Cairns overall were very short on players for this past round, so that's given Armstrong more opportunity. So do you think that probably we might have seen the peak of his opportunity for the next few weeks now that we've got those guys coming back?
It's hard to know. I think Cairns are a funny team, sort of. I mean, even in the Discord, we've been chatting that I guess not having Miller probably didn't help, but their attack looks a bit all over the place sometimes when they're with the ball, and so it's hard to gauge when Miller's not there who's kind of like the man type thing to try and score the points. So I think certainly with Miller back, Armstrong's minutes will be affected. There's no doubt about it. I mean, Miller, when he's played, has performed pretty damn well, Supercoach wise for the Taipans. So it's a tough one. I mean, if you want to try and make some cash, okay, you can probably hold on to him, but then you're probably going to have to be prepared for a score of maybe 5 or 6 points if he's on your bench, if he doesn't get the minutes to during the game itself. So again, risk reward ultimately.
Yeah, and look, I should clarify what I said too. McCall did come back on the weekend as well. Miller basically was out and Armstrong replaced him. So Armstrong will go back to the bench. McCall and Miller will be the backcourt. And even when he started on Sunday, Armstrong had 17 minutes. Now, he played pretty well. He shot 4 or 5 from the field, got a 3 or 4 from the free throw line, 12 and 4 line, but he did have 4 turnovers, which is going to happen with a young fella. But 17 minutes when he was starting, and they were a little bit short, especially with Miller out of the guard rotation. He'll probably get under 10 minutes, I would say. And, that it might be the worst case. He might not even get that many minutes. So there is some risk there, and that's what I think that people probably need to know. But at his price tag, that's going to make money automatically, and with all the double game weeks, I think that you can easily just get him in, and it's perfectly fine. Other than Armstrong, we have Anthony Lamb that busted out on the weekend, and I was looking at him, and I got Brown instead, and I can't say that I'm disappointed with that. But Lamb is certainly someone who I think he's my buy of the week, and I'll say that outright. 277,000, just went up an extra 19,000. He's got a break even of -1. And this is one of those things like if you're trying to make money at this point and you want to get in someone that's going to make money, that you'd always rather get the guy in that's going to actually be startable in Anthony Lamb than the guy who in Armstrong isn't. So if you're choosing one of them, you'd be getting Lamb if you had the money, because he's got the same break even virtually. He's going to score a lot more points, and he's going to be someone that you can start. He's currently in 1% of teams. Like that's going to go up hugely. There's a heap of people that are going to be getting him in this week. But one of the advantages, I think, Ricky, is that not as many teams are going to be able to own Anthony Lamb this week as what should be getting him, because they've all got all these other problems. You've maybe got Huck Porty out, and you need a center. You got Travers out, and you need someone in that position instead. It's an ideal time to buy Anthony Lamb. And when you have a look at what he did on the weekend, he ended up with 72 points. I thought that he's come right into his own. Obviously, with a shortage of bigs in New Zealand, he's always more of a bit of a guard forward, but he's playing big. He got 3 blocks on the weekend, and they were pretty spectacular blocks, and he's getting those defensive stats. So I love Anthony Lamb for this week, and I love him going forward with the double game week after that.
Well, it's funny. Lamb is one guy I've brought in as well, and again, why not? As I said, he's still only due for a further price rise, and certainly I think he's transitioned quite well into that Breakers team. Obviously, there was he's certainly been around NBA systems before, so he knows what it's like to be at the top level. But certainly, if he keep going, and with the Breakers double game rounds coming up, I can see him perform having a nice little combination with Jackson Cartwright, especially, and sort of I guess with any of them. I'm more surprised he's not starting, but I guess still playing 31 minutes from the bench is great, regardless. So I think he's certainly seen as a focal piece there, and yeah, if you can get him in, great. Otherwise, if you can't, then I think he's certainly even for next week and the week after, he's almost a must-have, just because of the Breakers' upcoming schedule is so great for Supercoach.
Yeah, I agree. It's just like if you go to next week, they're playing Tassie in Tassie, which is hard, but then they're playing Illawarra at home, and Illawarra is a great matchup for them, and they're playing in New Zealand. So, even if he has a poorer first game next round, it's a great second game to finish on, and that makes him captain material just about. And then when you have a look at round 9, they're playing at home versus Adelaide, and that's phenomenal. And then they're playing away versus the Phoenix, and the Phoenix are playing much better, but they are still giving up points. So the next few rounds for New Zealand look very good, and at a -1 break even, if you're going to get Anthony Lamb, you have to get him now. That's basically what it comes down to. So moving along, I definitely think those are the 2 most interesting buys. Bannon was a great buy last week. Some questions about, should he be being bought still? Yes, he should be, because he's 192,000 now, so he's just gone up 79K, which is why he was such a great buy last week. But he looked great, and he's got a -13 break even still. So at a -13 break even, anybody is going to be worth getting in if you want to make some money, and he's a low enough price, and sub 200K is low enough. But one of the biggest things I think with him, Ricky, was I was really impressed with watching him. We had Baines come back, but Bannon still just killed it, and he ended up getting a mountain of rebounds. The offensive boards, I think he got 6 or 7 offensive rebounds in the game, and I just thought that it was really impressive and passed the eye test as well.
I know, it certainly has. I mean, I guess he probably came in a bit later than we wanted him to in the end. Obviously, he didn't play the first few rounds and whatnot, but pretty much once Baines got that suspension, it was almost a formality for him to come in. And look, he's done well. He's certainly played his part. And I think the bonus of a guy like Bannon is he's even though Baines has returned and you got Harrison as well there at the Bullets, he's a guy that can transition from forward to centre. He's not strictly confined to the middle, so it certainly helps him, I guess, to get more minutes and to score more points ultimately. So if he can, just keep doing what he's doing, I think, while he's making money, he's a guy that you can easily get in. And as you said, sub 200K scoring the points that he is, I mean, that's almost well, not almost. It's a win-win for everyone, really.
Yeah, it certainly is. Bryce Cotton, interesting. He, the king had fallen well and truly this year, and I've got to say, like, I talked about him last week, and I thought, he is a consideration because, at the end of the day, he'd gone down a lot in price, and he had to start to get some value back. They obviously beat Melbourne, and they needed OT to do it. Bryce Cotton was still fairly instrumental. Iced the game with, I think, 4 free throws in the last minute and a half or something like that. Finished 13 to 14 from the stripe, which is great. But he scored well. Like, he had a 68-point round with a double game week, and I think that anyone that bought him would be happy with that. But I'm still pretty concerned, because he played 43 minutes on the weekend across OT, and he still only shot 5 of 17 from the field. And that's been his biggest problem this NBL season. His shooting has been awful. There's been questions about the offensive schemes that Perth are putting in. Really, his head's on the chopping block. I wasn't, like, on paper, I think if people weren't paying attention, Ricky, they'd go, well, that's an impressive win for Perth to get it over United, who had only lost one game up until this weekend. But in context, it wasn't, because they lost Huck Porty, they lost Clark, they lost Travers. 3 of their 5 starting lineup were gone for the game, playing 1, 8, and 10 minutes. And, they needed OT to be able to get across the line. It wasn't that impressive, and I didn't think Cotton was either. Cotton does have the double game week next week, though. So I think that's what people are looking towards. They do play New Zealand at home as well. So, I think that people are probably setting up for next week as well. They're having a look at the score that he got last week. The way I look at it, though, is the guard spot has so many different options, Ricky, that I don't really want to take one of my 2 starting spots up with Cotton at the moment. I'm still not that convinced, but you can't write him off as an option, though, and I get why people are buying him.
Absolutely. I mean, look, he's won the MVP before, so certainly at his best he's going to do great things. But yeah, it's like you said, certainly, 5 from 17 is not great for a starting guard at any level. I mean, that's 12 shots you're missing is a lot, and going to overtime against the Melbourne United side who lost 3 starters and arguably 3 of their best starters as well. When you think about it, so it's certainly. It's an indication as to where the Wildcats are at and sort of what's not working. But I certainly think if you do have Cotton, or if you got him in, keep him for the double game round. But probably after that, even looking ahead to what Perth's schedule is like, once that double game round is done, I don't think Cotton is really a must for the season up for after round 9, basically, because Perth's draw sort of isn't very Supercoach friendly in terms of the doubles.
Yeah, so I think that one of the other guys that's coming in after that is Harrison. And, Harrison played well for the Bullets on the weekend. His last game especially, he shot 7 of 8 from the field, 6 of 6 from the free throw line for his 20 and 8 line with an assist and a steal and only 1 turnover. Super efficient, so he doesn't have very many negative Supercoach stats. But I'm just not seeing it. Like, when you're having a look at him, he's got the -1 break even, which ticks the box to make some money, but he's also 231,000. So it's like, I know that he's a different position than a Lamb, but he's only 40,000 difference to a Lamb. You'd find a way to get Lamb in as opposed to get the centre in of Harrison. To me, if you're looking for money, if you're looking for a way to make some cheap money, you'd get an Armstrong in for a bit of a longer term cash grab. I understand with the break even that it's negative, but on the weekend we already spoke about how Bannon played fantastic. Now, Harrison played well too for the Bullets, but Baines only had 10 minutes off the bench that last game. And I think that they're working his conditioning back in again, and I'm pretty sure that they've even said that in the media. Baines isn't going to keep playing 10 minutes a game, and that's either going to put Harrison on the bench or take 10 minutes at least out of what he's doing at the moment. I would think that would happen this weekend. Maybe they wait an extra week and then maybe Harrison's got a bit more value. But I just see too many flags there for me to bother when there's other options that I can either make money with or score points from. I guess maybe it's coming down to the positional scarcity of centre and Supercoach and people not being able to afford the source with Alan Williams at over 400k, people not believing in Pinder perhaps, even though he's just dropped in money. Maybe, there's not many other options and you want someone at that 230k mark. I'm not really getting the Harrison love aside from his break-even and performance on the weekend, I guess.
No, definitely not. I mean, I don't think he's had some good games, obviously, so far this season, but certainly, as I said, once Baines starts getting his conditioning back and plays more minutes, I don't think we can expect to see Harrison really getting anything more than that 15-minute mark, which is not enough to justify him even as a benchy in your sentence, to be honest, just because it probably is unlikely to accrue enough points to try and propel yourself into those high positions.
Yeah, mate. It's like 60 on the weekend was great, but that's the most he's scored all season. And look, before that, he's got nowhere near it. And so I would steer clear, actually. I just stick clear. When we're having a look at some of the other guys, we've got Menenga coming in for Cairns. Look, he's been popular on and off for a few weeks. 104,000 as another centre option that you can have. He's got a 3 break even, so I completely get it. He hasn't scored over 24 points in a round, though, and that was last round. Obviously, he's got the double game week after this week, so I understand people looking at it maybe an old bridge to him because they think they can make some more money, and that's totally fine if you're set up that way. Patrick Miller coming in. Look, I love Patrick Miller, and I kind of wish that I had him still because I decided to bite the bullet and trade him out because I couldn't afford to not have him with all my injuries I had last week. So I'm not going to talk anyone out of doing it, though. I will say probably with this one, I'd be looking at getting him in at some point, but you'd want to make sure that he's definitely healthy. I haven't seen any updates as yet. I'm sure we'll get some before the round starts. You'd assume that he's going to be healthy and playing, but you'd want to make sure that's right before you actually get him in. If he is, though, Ricky, he's going to be really good over the next couple of rounds.
Absolutely. I mean, Cairns' draw for Supercoach is tremendous, and I think they've got a run of they play 6 doubles in a row. So I mean that's insane, and obviously we've seen Miller can score 30, 35 just in one game alone. So with 6 doubles in a row, presuming he plays them all, I mean this week fair enough if you don't get him in and he plays, that's okay. But certainly he'd be a guy that you want to have in from next week and then the rest of the season because Cairns' draw is
definitely the next couple of weeks is when you're going to be looking at getting him in for the rest of the year. He's got a break even at 17, and this is the beauty of the single game week. You can just wait. Like he'll go up in money. Like if he's healthy, he'll probably score 30 plus, but it's not going to go up that much because he's at 325k. So you can afford to wait and see that he's healthy, and then get him in the following round. And then when you do that, you're obviously set up long-term with Miller in one of your spots. And that's what I'm going to be looking at in a couple of weeks' time. Look, we got Mayen coming in for Cairns as well. He's gone up 34k this week. He's got a -8 break even. It's a quick cash grab. I can't talk anyone out of that one. Doolittle for Perth. Now, this one's interesting. So, Doolittle looked a lot better on the weekend, put up a lot better numbers. He has gone up 34,000, now 205,000. 57 points last round. He's playing the Breakers this week, and then he's got that double for Perth of Cairns and Brisbane. Doolittle hasn't gotten much talk. He's a forward-only Supercoach option, but I can see the appeal. At 0% ownership and a double game week next round, he could be someone that's a bit of a value buy at 205,000. We haven't really seen the best of him. Like I think he only scored 4 points in his debut. He also had a knee injury early on as well in this season. he definitely hasn't hit his straps. On the weekend, he was much better. Now, it is a little risky because do we see, that type of Doolittle that we saw on the weekend, or was that just a bit of a bust out anomaly and he's actually a bit of a dud import that they've got at the moment? I'm not too sure because I haven't seen enough of him. So, he could be a bit of a risk reward play for sure, and pretty ballsy move from some super coaches, but certainly with the double game week next week and how he played some of his minutes on the weekend, it could pay off.
No, it certainly could. I mean, it's always tough to gauge imports. I mean, most centers either tend to be stars or duds, and certainly Dooley showed his quality last week. But it's like I was saying before, Perth at the moment is sort of playing like a mixed bag as well. So you never know, is he going to be? I mean, even with the double game week next week, is he going to be able to, get you 70, 80, 90 points, or is he going to score you 20 points collectively? Because that's what Perth scores are doing now at the moment. So it's if you have him and he performs, that's a good, I guess, like a good pod buy. But I'm not sure I have enough confidence in that Perth team and how they're playing at the moment to probably justify picking him.
Sorry, Ricky, can you hear me? Is that better? Yeah. So
So I think it
that
was
was
mine.
my fault. That was my fault. All good.
I think it was mine too. I think my headphones just had a little breakdown as well, so I had to
No,
get new
that's
ones
okay.
in.
No worries. So Sar's the 10th most traded in player as well, which is a bit crazy because he's 10th most traded out player, 10th most traded in player with trades at the moment for this week, and it probably is about right for Sar. He's a real tweener. I wouldn't really want to sell him. I'd want to hold him, but at the same time, wouldn't want to buy him. He's sort of in that in between category. I think that you could probably wait and buy him next week if you really wanted to, and there's some other guys around that price tag, but maybe some teams don't have that luxury and they need to go to him. I mean, if it's an Aldrich to him, which is a pretty popular one, I'd probably just hold Aldrich for a week and see what happens, especially when injuries can happen and stuff. It's pretty sideways. So yeah, I'm not heaps into it, and I think that's a pretty straightforward one. Did you have any other players not in the market now that you thought might be a good look for this week?
So can you repeat that one, Mark?
Did you have any other players that we haven't talked about in Market Watch that you might be looking at eyeing off for this week for trade-ins?
Not too much. I mean, probably, I guess a guy. I mean, I know I'll probably come up later when one of the questions comes up that from one of the users, but I think maybe a guy that's sort of maybe the usage his ownership isn't as high and is performing mostly consistently. If you do want a big man and you can't afford to get Al Williams, obviously who's now plus 400k and performing well, probably a guy like Sam Froling from the Hawks. He's certainly he's. I know a few teams I've seen over the last weeks have had him, and he's seems to be putting up at least 30, 35 points a game, which as a starting center is quite handy. Obviously, as any starting player, so he's probably the only guy I'd put out there as a sort of a must watch, particularly as if you can't afford someone like Williams moving forward. But again, obviously, he's not going to be scoring 40 or consistently like Williams can. So obviously, it's not as much value there. But yeah, look, if you want someone a bit cheaper and that's more reliable than someone like your Wardenbergs or Menengas, whose minutes are so inconsistent at the tight ends, or or even at most teams we don't, even like the Bullets, where we don't know what the minutes are going to be like there. It could be a good option to have at least for a little while until maybe you can afford Williams at the back end.
Yep, for sure. My pick out of the ones that aren't in Market Watch, bit of a different one. Milton Doyle was a bit of an MVP candidate the first few weeks, and the MVP curse hit him, and the last few weeks he hasn't been as good. He has Adelaide this week in Tasmania. That is a great matchup for him. So he's certainly someone whose ownership has reduced. He's now down to 11%, so not quite pod territory, but just about. And the big thing is that next week, Tassie do have the double game matchup, and they've got New Zealand and they've got Cairns, with one of those at home and one of them away. And that's a pretty good double, New Zealand and Cairns. So Adelaide, New Zealand, Cairns the next 3 weeks is nice. And then after that double game week, they don't have another double game week until around 11, so you've got 2 rounds, but you can obviously trade him out in a few weeks' time. But the other thing too is that in round 9, they actually hit Adelaide again in that single game week. So you might even be tempted to go, you know what, I think you can put up 40 against Adelaide again. And if you can even hold him for that single game week. So I think Milton Doyle is a bit of an under the radar, certainly luxury buy. But at 312,000, if you can't afford some of these other more higher price guns and you've already got, say, a Lamb in your side, I quite like Doyle a fair bit, and he could be a real smoky captaincy option for next round as well.
No, definitely Doyle is definitely a guy that I like him. I've said before to others that certainly in this Jack Jumper side, if Crawford doesn't hog the ball too much, Doyle certainly gets a great chance to either score or facilitate, and he's not afraid to go to the basket, not afraid to dish out to teammates, shoot the 3 ball. So he's certainly a guy that is fun. It's great to watch, honestly. So, and as I said, if you can't afford the high end guys, he's certainly a person that's not gonna do poorly over a double game round or even a single game round if you're going to hold him.
Yeah, definitely. Well, captaincy options for this round, mate. Looking at the top few for each of us. Look, I'll go first. I am looking at this Phoenix versus United matchup going. This is that local derby that everybody gets up for, and it's can be a little bit aggressive and a little bit niggly and stuff, which is great. But normally it could be a real grindy game potentially. But I'm really watching the injury report for this one because Travers, Clark, Huckporty, if they're all out, which could happen, we haven't seen any updates yet. That's massive, and the Phoenix could absolutely feast. And then you're looking at guys like Alan Williams, and also Mitch Creek, or even a Brown. There's a few guys there that could absolutely feast in that one. So I'm certainly eyeing off a bit of a Mitch Creek masterclass, and I'm going to be watching to see who's out of that Melbourne United lineup. If they've only got like one of those guys out, then I'm probably going to steer clear of that one. The other one would be if I do have Milton Doyle. I'm looking at that Adelaide matchup, even though it's away in Adelaide. I'm pretty keen on a Milton Doyle pod go. And then the Sydney Kings have got a fantastic matchup at Kudos Bank Arena in Sydney versus the Brisbane Bullets. And I think that Jalen Adams looks really good for that one. I'm not confident enough to go for the Bryce Cotton call, even though he went good last round versus New Zealand in Perth, looks good, but I just can't do it. So for me, it's probably Adams, Creek, and Doyle, with a bit of a mix of pod value versus matchup value if United have got players out. But what about you, mate? Who are your few that you're eyeing off for the captaincy in this single game round?
Yeah, look, I think number one, I think at the moment is the source, but like you said as well, just depends on how many Melbourne United guys are out, whether Hook Porty and particularly Travers, because obviously both are being forward centres. And we've seen what Williams can do even against good sides. He can easily feast on things that if it wasn't found out last week, he probably could end up close to 45, 50. That's just the way he was travelling. So he knows how to score points. But if they do play, it certainly makes things a little bit different. I'd probably lean towards Jackson Cartwright. I think he's a reliable guy that if he's doing well, he can get 35 easily. But yeah, probably within my team, those two are probably the two that I've been looking for. But like you said, anyone, Bryce Cotton, if you want to take a gamble, again, given the way the Perth are playing, it's hard to know whether he's going to score 20 or score 40. But there's always Cotton there as well. And like I said, Jane Adams from the Kings, if you got him, good matchup against Brisbane at home. So, Kings always love to turn up at home. So they're probably the main options there. But it's each to their own ultimately.
Yep, for sure. Look, need to go for the community updates here. So round 6, the top scores, a bit embarrassing. Top score in the hub for the NBL Podmasters wrap was me at 433. SC Matrix at Insight was 408, and Dairy was 407. Overall, we got James Vernal at 77, which is a fantastic rank. 178, we got Boydie's Blokes for the basketball blokes. And then 184, we got Dari, who was there for the 407, third best for this round. And 184, we've got Chad at rank there for Fantasy Phoenix. So, look, there's 4 guys in the top 200 there. I'm hoping to be there this round after being at 275 this week. But great effort, guys. Everyone's looking really good, especially James there at rank 77. That's fantastic for this round. We do have some community questions to hit up as well here. So having a look at these ones. The first one that we had was actually about Armstrong, who we were talking about before. And that was, is he a must-have? And that was from Alex. So I'll go over to you, Ricky. Do you think Armstrong is a must?
Yeah, look, I certainly think he's, as we were saying before, it just depends if Miller is back or not, ultimately. I mean, if Miller plays, you can see his minutes becoming quite low and potentially, under that 10-minute mark. Even when he started, as you said earlier, he played 17 minutes and that he was starting. So that's not really a good stat by any means. So it's certainly, is he a must-have? If you want to make some cash, for sure, but I wouldn't say he's a must in terms of getting him in, because there are other ways you can make cash through the likes of Bannon and other guys like Lamb as well, that are higher price, obviously, but Aldridge as well.
I'll jump in and say for me he's not a must for sure, because
Armstrong playing 5 minutes and scoring 2
a must
points.
is someone you've got to get in now. You have to get him, and you don't need to. You can wait till next week. The other thing is a must is he's guaranteed to make huge money. He's not guaranteed to make huge money. He's just guaranteed to make some money. He's got a guaranteed role. There's no way he can fail. He can definitely fail. We don't know what his role is going to be. So I don't think he's a must at all, not even by any stretch, and it's someone that you can actually wait for. So definitely a good trade-in, but it's got a chance that it doesn't even work out. The other one that we've got is from 1 Inch Pinch, and he has asked the best centre replacements for Berger. That's a tough one, isn't it, centre, because it's a real tough spot. How are you looking at centre at the moment? I mean, look, I think that Alan Williams is the number one guy, but like we said, he's now on single game weeks for a while. Someone like Pinder underperformed last week, but to me, he presents a little bit of value at 350k with a double game week next week, which, you're not going to have a lot of centre options that actually have that round next week. We've got Cairns, New Zealand, Perth and Tassie as a double game week, guys. Wardenberg still might be a guy that you need to look at, considering the amount of Cairns double game weeks coming up. So I think that there are those few options. Luau Achul is obviously there for United, and he went off on the weekend with 25 points, and he's a phenomenal pod option, and he's a guy that Melbourne United don't have the double game weeks coming. So it's really, really hard. But if Huck Porty's out, he could be a real under the radar buy this week on a non-double game week for everybody, and someone who is so good that he can score 45 in a single game week, and you might be able to just hold him as a premium centre option. So he's probably the smoky one out of them as well.
Yeah, look, I said Luai and Shield is a good buy. Obviously, if Hook Porty is out even for a few weeks, the United don't really have too many centres around. I mentioned earlier Froling is off Illawarra again. Their draw isn't great, but if you want a guy that is a bit cheaper, go for Froling. And even if you want someone that's even cheaper than that, the Kings have a pretty good draw coming up. Someone like what's his name? Jordan Hunter as well. Certainly, again, plenty of double game rounds. He may score poorly some games, but has proven he can score some points as well. So if you want someone that's still in the 218K with the chance to make some money, he could be a decent cheaper option. But I think probably the United guy at the moment is if Porty's not playing, certainly Joe Luai is probably the number one guy you want to be getting in if you know the source.
Yeah, JLA is owned by 1.9% of teams, which is amazing. Like if you can get him in this week, and you're happy just to cop a single game week coming up for a bit, then that's fantastic. And I really like him. I would love to get him in, but I have Alan Williams. So Alan Williams and JLA, I think, are the two premium options. Pinder is a value guy that's going to have the double game week next round, so he might actually score the most points over the next 2 weeks, being the only guy out of those top three centres. And then after that, you're looking at the cheaper guys, and I think Wardenberg could be your starter on some of these off weeks even. Like you could get a Pinder in with if you've got Wardenberg already, and after next week just hold Pinder and start Wardenberg in a double game week. So I think that's the way I'd be going. Those are the guys that I'd definitely be looking at. I don't think there's really many other options. But that is the podcast. That is this week's Supercoach Hub NBL episode. Thanks very much for guesting on the podcast, Ricky. It was great to have you and talk some basketball this week.
No, thanks very much for having me on. Appreciate it.
No worries. Well, if anyone wants to find the podcast, you can see it posted everywhere by the Supercoach Hub. Certainly jump on the Discord server as well and get involved with the chat and everything. The episodes will come out every Wednesday on YouTube as well as Spotify, so you'll be able to listen or watch whatever you'd like to do. That's all fine. But good luck with the NBL single game round this week. It's going to be a really interesting one. Good luck with your captaincy choices. And I will be back next week, Barnesy, with another special guest while the Supercoach pleb is out. So we'll speak to you real soon about some more basketball.